Hey there, guys. Welcome to Confessions of the Idiots. Everybody wants to confess, but not everyone wants to hear them. Today, I'm joined in isolation by two of my favorite boys. One boy in particular I've known for an extremely long amount of time. We've traveled together. We've spent so much time together in a communal bathroom area.
Wow.
Just so much goddamn time. It is the great, the legend that is Dave Warneke. Welcome, Dave.
Hello, my old friend. Thank you so
Our
much.
old,
Great to be
old
here.
friend. And another great friend who is more of a recent friend. However, I saw a Facebook memory the other day pop up of our show, Dave Warneke, that we did at Melbourne Comedy Festival, and Auntie Donna were guests. And that was how long ago now?
I think 4 years.
4 years ago. So I've known this
Really?
guy for 4 years, the great Zachary Ruane. Welcome, Zachary Ruane.
Woo!
Thank you. Woo.
So excited you boys are here. Now, how's this week been for you boys in isolation? Dave, how have you been in holding up and keeping yourself entertained?
Well, I've been having a good time. I've definitely had a quarantine midlife crisis, and I bought myself a Nintendo Switch.
Sure.
Yes.
Which I'm not a gamer of any sort. The guy at EB Games said, "Are you a member here?" And I said, "Absolutely not." He said, "Have you ever shopped here?" And I said, "Not in about 18 years."
Right.
I think the last time I
Did you
bought a
like
console
that?
was in 2002. So I'm signed up now, and I am one of the new Mario Brothers.
Oh my God!
Wow.
Congratulations, that's huge, Dave.
Thank you.
That's huge.
Thank you so
And
much.
what about you, Zachary Ruane? What's kept you entertained this week?
Well, I finally got around to binging Tiger King, the
Oh my
Tiger King
goodness.
documentary on Netflix.
I've heard of it.
Quite legitimately, the first few times people told me to watch it, I thought it was about prawns. And then when I found out it was about the King of the Tigers, I thought I'd give it a go.
Did you find that more interesting than the prawn-based show?
I could never get past the fact that it was just two kinds of prawn. Like I could not move past that as a title. People were like, what a good title. And I'm like,
Yeah.
it just sounds like different prawn varietals to me. But
So
no, I
you were
did watch it.
convinced that the number one show is prawns.
Yeah, well, yeah. I was like, it sounds like it's about prawns. I don't know if I thought it was about prawns so much as I couldn't get past the fact that the title made me think of prawns.
Right.
And I thought,
Right.
how can a quality show that only makes me think of prawns, how is that ever going to pull me in? Because all I'll be
Sure.
thinking about is delicious prawns.
Are you a big prawn guy, Zach? I've never asked you that question before.
Do you know what? I was not a fan of seafood growing up.
Yeah.
And I'm
Right.
glad this is finally, this is like,
Oh God!
this is
You're
what
gonna air
happens
your dirty
when you're
laundry.
a regular guest on something, isn't it? You get to the prawn conversation eventually. We're done talking
We've got
about
nothing
anything
else to talk about. I don't know what to bring up.
No, I wasn't a fan of seafood, and I always thought that was because seafood was bad, and then I realized it was because I lived an hour and a half inland, and all seafood is bad at that point. Nothing,
Right.
no seafood stays
It's
good
hot. It's
by the
sweaty.
time it gets to the Latrobe Valley. Yeah.
That's very true. What about you, Dave Warneke? I'll ask you the same question because I'm a goddamn pro of an interviewer. Do you like prawns, Dave?
I do not like prawns whatsoever.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
I don't like to look at them. I don't like to touch them. I don't like to eat
Yeah.
them. And I certainly do not like to kiss them.
Yeah.
If that's what you're
Well,
asking.
that's a very specific answer, Dave.
Yeah, but certainly- no, I
sounds a
find-
little bit like. Sorry, Dave.
Why do you keep bringing that up?
We weren't accusing you of kissing prawns, man.
Yeah, I certainly don't. I don't have relations with prawns. I certainly don't do that.
I don't sleep with them at night. I don't tuck myself up with the prawns, if that's what you're asking.
No, I like I like fish, but I don't like most other seafoods. I just find the texture a bit off. Like
Yeah,
your
right.
calamaris, your
Interesting.
squids, your prawns.
Yeah.
Need I go on?
That's. I find prawns to be like the least offensive seafood in a lot of ways because you can cover them
Oh.
in sauce.
Are
They're
oysters the
chewy
most
and
offensive?
fun.
What's the most offensive for you, Zachary Ruane?
Well, that's
What are you
tough.
offended by?
I think oysters were the hardest to get into. I'm now a fan of oysters, but they were a long journey to get into. Do you know what? I really don't like a heavy oily fish. I'm trying to think of like a cod. I don't like cod.
Right.
I don't
That's
like,
not for you.
No, I like a red fish, like a tuna or a salmon. And
Okay.
then if we're gonna go a white fish, I really like the flake. I want to go really inoffensive. That sort of middle ground, oily
Yeah.
white fish, not for me.
Do you sit down, Zach? Do you sit down with a nice glass of white wine? You sit back with your fish and you think about Jesus Christ, our Savior. Has that ever happened? Have you ever thought about that?
That's often. I mean, every Friday on Lent, every Lent Friday.
Every Friday.
Tucking into every Friday.
every
A
Friday.
lot of these newfangled Catholics
Yep.
that the ABC are trying to bring down.
Oh, our ABC. Thanks, Auntie.
Oh, I'm paying taxes as a Catholic, and they spend the whole time attacking our leadership. And that's
Oh my God. It's not on in my book.
Zach's become a hard right.
How are you guys feeling about the Howard government at the moment, though? Do you think they're doing a good job?
Like better than that bloody pompous one before him. What was his name? That bloody
Keating.
Keating. Oh, I wasn't a fan of him. He was so bloody pompous. Oh, what a loser. Thinks he's so good in a city. Bull crap, if you ask me.
Well, I hope the Howard government get a hell of a lot better, you guys, because I am sick of them. If they bring in the GST, I'm out.
Oh, man.
No, they bring in the GST because they said they wouldn't.
Happen. It will never happen.
Thank you, Dave. I know that you're hot on the press of this.
Yeah, I am an economist.
You are.
Yes.
That's why I have you on. You're like the David Koch of podcasting.
Yeah.
I talk fish. Dave talks economy.
What a great varietal podcast. Has anything changed for you guys in isolation? Like, has anything about your
Everything.
everything's changed?
I feel no joy anymore. Anyway, next question.
All right, let's get into some confessions because we really need to get the funny back. Because I've got two wonderful confessions for you two today. And I know that both of you are going to bring some great advice to these people. David and Diane, we're going to hear from today. And when I read the confession that comes from Diane, Dave, I know Zach so well now because he's been on the podcast so many times that I know that Zach's going to get a real kick out of Diane. So, Dave, I hope that you're going to get a real kick out of David because he shares the same name. And see
Certainly
if you can relate to him. Yeah. Because confession
I would love
one,
it. I would love it if David one is just confesses about kissing prawns.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And then,
No.
Change the names at least.
Just David Warneke. Confession one is from David Warneke. David Warneke confesses. I
kissing prawns.
I don't.
You're protesting too much, Dave.
No, that's right.
I, like everybody I've ever known, love attention. I love the attention of anyone who will give it to me. And I'm meant to feel bad about that? No such thing, he writes. All right, so this is David's writing style, really building it up at the moment. Do you think...
I also love that, there are so many people that don't like attention. Like 50% of the world.
Yeah, introverts.
Do not like attention.
But there's no such thing.
No, in his defense, he's just never come across one. It's only the people he's known. He's never come across anyone that doesn't like attention.
Okay, that's fair.
He was born into a drama academy.
Everybody I know is loud, annoying, and 19 years old.
I remember in 6th grade, we had a guest speaker come to our school who spoke to us about greed. They were a gambler and said that they lost everything. I remember one part of the speech in particular where the gambler said that everything comes at a price. You can fold or you can stay. Look someone dead in the eye and press, always hoping for the best. Does that resonate with either of you?
No. I'm not a gambler.
You're not a gambler, right? So maybe you don't understand what he's talking about.
And what were the two options? You can fold or you can...
Stay.
Right. For some reason, I immediately went fold or scrunch, like he was going to do the whole toilet paper argument. And I thought, well,
you're a scrunch or a folder?
Yeah. You can either... There's two options in life. You can fold or you can scrunch. Okay, gambler.
Only two options. Do you want to bet me right now which one you are? No, thank you. Thank you, gambler. Did you guys have anyone like that came to your school and gave a speech just to warn you about where your life can go? What was yours, Zach?
I'm trying to think. We had quite a few. I remember.
Was
we
it a
used to have
prawn?
police officer. It was a prawn.
Dave,
And,
Dave did not kiss him, by the way, if that's what you're asking.
Dave did not kiss that prawn. No, we had quite a few. We had I remember we had a police officer that would come around quite a lot, and he would just talk about, you shouldn't steal, and he was like,
yeah.
a lot of your friends might tell you it's cool to steal, like you talk about peer pressure. And I distinctly remember just saying to him, like, because I think because he was talking about peer pressure and like trying to impress people, I kind of misunderstood the way to like impress him, because I was like, and so I put my hand up and I was like, I reckon if a friend told me to steal something, I'd do it. I would do it.
If push came to shove.
If it meant impressing a friend, I want you to know, yes, you're right. Peer pressure is a powerful thing.
Now, I've got one more question to ask you. Are you a scruncher or a folder? That's what they always ask. Dave, did you have anyone like that come to your school when you were a young boy?
Well, the most influential or the biggest impression I remember being put upon me at school was we actually went on an excursion to a prison, and we spoke to an armed robber and 2 murderers, and they were a bit like, don't do what I did.
Oh my God. Were they good speakers?
They actually were. They were good speakers, but they were terrifying, to be honest.
Yeah. That's really scary, because we had, I don't know if I've told this story to either of you before, but we had Greg Hunt come to our school.
As in the fisherman football player?
No, he was a he was
Wait,
he,
no.
It was
you mean the now health minister?
The health minister.
You're thinking of Rex Hunt.
Oh, the guy that kisses. He does kiss the fish, though. Dave, he does kiss the fish, and he puts them back.
I mean, he's a hero of mine.
Do yourself a favor if you haven't already. Have you guys ever read the Rex Hunt Wikipedia page?
No.
No, you haven't come to that. Your moments in isolation have been less dire than mine. Have
you read all of Wikipedia?
Yeah, I just clocked it. Next level. I'm looking for deaths now as an update. I'll read all the updates. No, but Rex Hunt's page has a lot of controversies in it. Because he gets into fisticuffs with his son quite a bit. But Greg Hunt came to our school, and they said at the end, because, he was coming to say, if any of you kids want to get into politics, I think they thought these kids from Phillip Island don't have a lot going on, but maybe we can inspire them by getting Greg Hunt, who was a member of Flinders back then. And he came to the school and he said, does anyone have any questions? After he gave a speech, he said, does anyone have any questions? Before he went on to his scrunching or folding routine, he said, do any of you have any questions about the world of politics? And no one put up their hand, like no one. And I waited a good 20 seconds as I was like awkward looks around the room. And then I put up my hand and I said, Mr. Hunt, where did you get your tie from? And he said, my wife bought it. Yeah. Oh. And that was all the questions.
That's so funny.
And that was
great.
He was taking questions on politics, and you're like, well, if someone's going to ask him something.
It was a great tie, beautiful polka dot tie. But our good friends, so you guys were warned from a young age, much like David was warned about the problems of gambling. Do you fold or do you stay? And so he's held on to this for a long time. So you're probably now wondering, if I got into the world of gambling, no such thing. I was scared off from that speech and never gambled a thing in my life. What I did was so much worse, but this speech stayed in my mind like tissue paper. Do you guys understand that?
I do not understand that as a metaphor.
I mean, do you fold or scrunch that tissue paper?
That's true. That's true. That's the only way you can bring it back. So I was 20. It doesn't make any sense.
Tissue paper do?
Because usually if you're making an analogy like that, you have to relate it back to something. You have to be like tissue paper because tissue paper does. It's not just, but this speech stayed in my mind like tissue paper. Doesn't make any sense.
I feel like tissue paper is quite flimsy and doesn't stay around.
Not forever.
It stayed in my mind like I don't know, cement. I don't know, something it has more permanence to it.
So I was 22 years old. Bear in mind, this was 9 years ago now. So we've had no reason to believe that up until he told us that. And a friend of mine was having a party. For some reason, I was not invited. You guys shocked at the moment that David wasn't invited to the party?
I feel like no one's going to invite anyone that would write this sort of confession to a party, particularly one who likes attention.
Yeah, they're not the sort of person that should be at a party. How sad for me, but they didn't seem to think twice about it. So, missing out on the party, I sat in my room all night and cried.
Oh.
Just sobbed my heart out. The pain was not real, but all in my head. Do you guys understand that? It's like tissue paper. It's all in his head.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it comes in handy if you're crying yourself to sleep. I got to tell you.
We've all been there. Some would say that hurt even more. So what did I do? Well, the next day, people were asking why I wasn't invited to the party. Craving the attention, I thought I'd make up an excuse and make my friend feel bad for not inviting me. So what do you guys do? Zach, what would you do in this situation if you weren't invited to a party and you wanted your friend who didn't invite you to feel bad about not inviting you to the party? What would you do?
I'd probably just give him a call and say, why didn't you invite me to the party? Maybe I'd throw a party, not invite him.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Get back at him.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just take little digs, catch up with him and just take like little digs at him to make his feelings hurt.
Yep.
Those are probably the three things I would think to do.
What would you do, Dave, in this situation? Would you do a similar thing to Zach and host your own party?
Or maybe you could like every single photo from that party on Facebook, just so it keeps coming up in his feed.
Great.
He's like, oh, because then that whoever hosted the party, they're very aware that you knew that there was a party.
Yeah, very aware. Okay, so he doesn't do that. He goes a different route with this.
I'm so excited to hear what he chose.
I told them.
This is a fish.
I told them that I was diagnosed with stage 1 cancer.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
Okay.
Stage 1. It's very famous, stage 1. Everyone felt immediate guilt. Everybody felt bad for me. When we left the food court, the guys all wanted to hang out with me. So we didn't know it was at a food court up until this point. It was in a food court. Yeah. That's where all the boys hang out. At a food court. You know what food courts are like? Just heaps of boys. Heaps of boys.
Too many.
Too many boys. The guys all wanted to hang out with me, but I told them I needed time alone. Over the next 2 years, I pretended that I was dying.
Oh no. He's really playing the long game for this one party.
This one party.
God.
So this one party's upset poor David so much that he pretended he had cancer for 2 whole years.
And he immediately got what he wanted and then knocked it back. People wanted to hang out with him and he said, no, I've got to be alone right now.
Yeah, got to be alone with my cancer. Stage 1 cancer, if you must know. For 2 whole years, I told the boys that I probably wasn't even going to make it until Christmas. They brought it, of course.
But there were 2 Christmases.
2 Christmases. Yeah.
So
Over 2 years.
Christmas.
Added up, 2 Christmases.
Oh, sorry, I was talking about the next Christmas. Yeah.
Hey, just quite genuinely, did they what they brought it or they bought it?
He says brought.
He does say brought. I didn't know if I was. That's funny. They brought it. They brought it. Oh, you fucking idiot! Don't know the difference between bought and brought.
So I remember.
Maybe you should have listened to your fucking English teacher instead of that fucking gambling cunt.
They brought it, of course, and my lie got more and more convoluted as time went on. So he knows the word convoluted, but he doesn't know brought or bought. Each day that went by, a new lie was formed. I remembered the gambler from back at school. Do I fold or do I stand my ground? See, it's all coming back. It's beautiful.
When that gambler was saying that, I bet he was thinking, right now, one of these kids will one day pretend to have cancer. And it's going to be their choice.
This will make sense to them then.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Surely a gambling addict that's coming to tell you to stop gambling was using that analogy to stay fold. Like, definitely fold.
Yeah.
Like, that was why he said that.
Yeah,
Please
the
fold.
gambler wouldn't be saying, stick with it, kids. And you can end up like, no, he's promoting gambling. That's why every time I'm buying a tie, I think of Greg Hunt, if you must know.
It's good to know.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was sturdy on my feet and was getting so much attention, it felt ridiculous. But as time went on, I felt worse and worse. especially when I heard other people had legitimate cancer. And then in brackets, he writes, probably. So he doesn't really,
right.
he's not sold on them either.
So they might have also been shunned from a party.
Yeah. That's the only reason they'll pretend to have cancer.
Am I right in saying that, like, is it a sociopathic thing to assume everyone else is as sociopathic as you? Is that like one of the qualities of like a sociopath or a narcissist or something? Like, this guy seems properly unwell, and like to then be like, you know what? I reckon I don't think cancer exists. I reckon they're all just playing the long game.
I think he does sound like a bit of a sociopath, to be honest.
Yeah,
and
which is like 90% of the people on this show. This podcast.
And I was the one hogging all the limelight. What a thing to do. Now we're all a lot older, in our early 30s, because we know that it was 9 years ago.
Oh, that's right. So he pretended to have it for 2 years, and now another 7 years have gone past. Right.
Yeah. And, of course, I've calmed down a whole lot. The guys just think I got better, but did I even have cancer in the first place? No such thing.
Right. I was going to say, they're trying to gaslight themselves into thinking that they did have it now.
Yeah, but also trying to make us believe that he's such a good writer that we still aren't sure.
Yeah, he's that good.
Yeah, what a twist.
He really brought it. He really brought it.
You really brought it. The truth is, now I feel so bad about it that I feel like I should tell the boys. I want to get rid of my guilt. I want it to fade away into the night. This shouldn't be how I feel forever. I did one bad
that's
thing.
where guilt goes.
Into the night. Doesn't it fade away into the night, Zach?
It's not fucking Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. Like,
It
on
just
a
fades
little
away.
fucking motorbike.
I did one bad thing to get attention. Should I feel made to feel like this forever? All right, so that comes from David. That's a beautiful confession that comes from our good friend David Warneke. David Warneke.
Oh, whoa.
What would you do in this situation, Dave? What would you do if this wasn't you? What would you do in this situation?
Oh, man. This is
It's a
tough
doozy.
one.
Do you feel like you need to come clean to the boys after all this time? Sit in the food court, perhaps, and tell them what happened.
Well, I mean, apart from alleviating your guilt, is there anything good that can come from it?
Well,
Apart from, of course, going full circle and then starting to tell this story at kids' high schools to sort of warn them off your path.
yeah, that's probably the only way you can do it. Maybe you could start going and doing little TED Talks around town talking about the horrible things that you've done. Maybe that's a good thing as a dire warning to other kids. Zach, what would you do in this situation?
Probably wouldn't tell people I had cancer 9 years ago.
Sure, right. You would have avoided the situation at first.
In his current situation, that's a tough one, isn't it? I think you don't tell them. That's just gonna fucking like that. If I had a friend who had cancer 9 years ago, and then 9 years later they tell me I was faking it, that would like destroy, just destroy any faith I had in people. So I reckon he's better to just leave it this way.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, just leave it and move on.
Yeah. Do
you think you can do anything?
Cancer, second relapse if they don't invite him to any of their weddings now that they're in their 30s.
Do you think there's any way that he can resolve himself from this guilt? Because he obviously feels really bad about it. He just has to live with it. Yeah.
Maybe go to a psychologist. Get his 10 sessions.
10 free sessions? That's a good idea.
His 10 free sessions.
Well, everyone should do that. They should make use of that, shouldn't they, boys?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you were sitting in the food court, though, and someone told you, like someone came to you, Zach, and they said, hey, I pretended I had cancer for 2 years. And then obviously you're thinking, well, there's a lot of lies that have gone along with that as well. Like he's had to lie about a lot of different stuff and had to hide a lot of stuff. Would you still be friends with that person, or you think that would be it?
No, that would be it.
That would be it, yeah.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's such an extreme lie. The one thing I would say is that's such an extreme lie. I would go, oh, you're not right in the head. So I probably it wouldn't be like I'm going to cut you out. It would be more of I'm not going to trust you or be friends with you, but I would probably go, but I might, talk to any friends I have that work in psychology and try and get you some help, man.
Try and work him out a little bit.
Yeah. Help him out.
He's got a lot going on in his head, in his noggin. What about
Well,
you?
do you think? I was just going to say, what are the chances of this being the only big lie that he's ever told? Do you think? Sure. I mean, surely you don't just randomly come up with that as a lie for 2 years, and
Yep.
everything else in your life is completely truthful, right?
Yeah. What do you think he would have started with? Is there any other lie you think maybe that he would have? Maybe he was telling people that he was invited to that party.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and was he about 22 at the time of the party? Something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It's not like he was. If you went back and you said, "Oh, I made up a big lie when I was 13 years old" or something, it would be more understandable. But at 22, you can't go around for 2 years pretending you have cancer. You just
No.
can't do that.
And telling people I probably won't make it until Christmas.
No. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
What a horrible lie. So both of you think he just needs to live with it, not tell his friends, and just try and move on and maybe be a better person.
Yeah. Try and make amends in other ways. I reckon maybe.
Yeah.
Because there's no amount of food courts with the boys that can make up for that.
No, absolutely not.
Maybe he can buy them a sumo salad next time. Maybe that might make it up.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, we've got another confession, guys, because I feel like we solved David's problems. The next confession comes from Diane.
Our solution was just shut the hell up, David.
Shut up, David.
The next confession comes from Diane. Diane writes, I'm a fairly regular woman, if that's what you call it. She's a fairly regular woman, Zach, if that's what you call it.
She eats. She has a high fiber diet.
She has a high fiber diet.
Fairly high fiber.
Fairly high fiber. Lots of time for me to be myself and not give two hoots about what other people think of me. I've been married to Calvin for 9 years, and let me tell you, being married to a barrister certainly has its perks.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
It would though,
What are
wouldn't it?
they?
That the high flying world of being a barrister's wife. You can imagine
Okay.
caviar, prawns, oysters.
Oh.
She's always
No,
shucking
thank you.
oysters. Yeah, no, thank you. We're from the city, if you can believe such a thing. And
If I can believe such a thing.
Yeah.
Well, there's like a 70% chance you're from a city. Like most of the world lives in urban centers.
so you
And
believe
did you
it,
get
Zach?
that-
Believe it.
Was this posted on some sort of country forum or something? Like, where'd you get this?
This is
You
just
can
on
believe such a
Reddit.
thing.
So
I would believe very much that the wife of a barrister lives in an urban center. Yes.
So it makes sense to you, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
she doubts that we can believe such a thing, but let's see if we can. I'm having trouble with it, but let's see if we can actually try. We're from the city, if you can believe such a thing, and every holiday season we go down to the beach house.
Okay, yeah.
It's a 2-hour drive, and getting away from it all drives me crazy. The produce is fresher. The local stores are so much more vibrant, and everyone knows your name. Isn't that lovely? A
Yeah,
place where
no.
everyone... No? You don't love it?
Although that is lovely. She's
Yeah.
annoying.
She's annoying.
Like, she's exactly. I reckon everyone in that beach town is just like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every
Oh,
su-
yeah.
Every summer, every like, Easter break.
Diane comes down in
There's
the
a bunch of
busiest
Dianes.
season.
There's like Dianes by the hundreds.
Yeah, talking about their fresh produce. And the air smells differently down here.
Yeah, like the ocean.
Like the ocean, it smells differently. Calvin takes the time to go fishing. He takes his rod out every day and takes to the water. I love the way he takes to the water. I started teasing him and calling him a duck a while back. That's funny, isn't it? That's funny. If your partner likes the water, would you ever call them a duck? Is that a funny thing to say?
100% yes.
100%
Yeah.
yes. 100%.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Well, he loved that. That's what you said. So Calvin loved that. Don't get me wrong. I love the city too. I'm a city girl at heart, if I can be completely honest.
I don't believe her.
You don't believe it? What are you calling her bluff? Dave at the moment.
Yeah. I don't think she doesn't even live in an urban centre, I reckon.
She's never even been there.
Yeah, never been to the city. Come on,
Never been to the
Diane.
city. But the country is where I can sit for hours and read, drink wine, and show off my sun hat outside. So of course she has a...
When you're walking, down a street in a beach town, and
Of course.
you
Sleepy
see a
Beach
lady
Town.
out the front with the sun hat, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, damn it, I want that sun hat.
Yeah. You get jealous of the sun hat?
Ah, man, I want a sun hat.
I wish I had a rich barrister husband so I too could have a sun hat.
That's why I wear my sun hat.
Of course, so people know your wealth.
The people see so I can show off my sun hat, not to protect my face from the sun.
No, it's the only reason I go outside, so I can show off my sun hat. Poor Calvin worked so hard. I chose to live the life of a trophy wife, and it served me extremely well. I haven't done much, but be the trophy wife in the past. You can say Calvin stole my heart. You could say a lot of things. So what do you guys think of Diane so far? Where do you think this is going to go at the moment?
She's going to fuck someone.
Yeah.
I think she's going to fuck a duck.
She's going to fuck a duck. Wow.
Oh, Calvin, I thought it was you. I'm so sorry. Oh, I didn't know.
He's very duck-like. He's always pouting, doing them big old duck lips. And so one night, I'm out on the veranda, and in brackets she writes this, we're lucky enough to have one. So she's very wealthy. Anyone who owns their own veranda is very wealthy. That's just a fact. You can look that up. And the local handyman stops by.
It's always a handyman, isn't
Always
it?
a handyman.
It's always a handyman.
Well, it's all good pornos have a handyman.
All good pornos and all good fake confessions written by middle-aged men that have been to neither the city or the country. I don't know where this person is, but they've never been to either the beach or the city. They're imagining both.
They live in an airport. I've met Scott before, but of course this night is quite hot and balmy, and he isn't wearing a shirt.
That is, I mean, for a nighttime, that's very hot and balmy.
Very hot and balmy. Yeah, I think they live in Central Coast. That's where they're going to be living. They can't be living in Victoria. God, no.
No way.
No way.
This isn't a Phillip Island tale. This is
no, God, no.
Yeah.
Pardon, monsieur, I think to myself.
Can I just ask, is this handyman here to do any handiwork?
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
Oh, good. Because I was like, why is he
You're worried. Why is he here?
Yeah.
I'm not one for abs. It's never been my kink. But something about Scott's sweaty body really turned me on. Calvin was out fishing, and I knew he'd be away for hours still. I thought I'd do a little fishing of my own. Like, that's quite flirty. Yeah.
Oh, what does that mean?
Was that a sexual thing, Dave? She's going to catch her own duck. Yeah.
It's
Sexual
sexy,
fishing.
Sexual. I asked Scott if he'd like some water. He was here to help with a bookshelf, and I wasn't going to let him leave without a bit of harmless flirting. I fetched him some water, and he began on the bookshelf. I simply adore reading. I pick up so much literature in France when Calvin and I travel once a year.
Sorry, what? This is a fucking segue. She's gonna fucking
She's gonna
I'm
fall.
tell you about my books.
And my European holidays. Well. Except for this year. Okay, so she said she goes to France every year, except for this year and the year before that.
Right. It's been a while.
It's been a while. Yeah. He's been so busy with work that all the time we can afford is by the beach house. I know I don't have much time, so I show Scott all of my books and run my fingers across the spine of each of the romantic novels. I can tell that Scott is impressed with me fingering the books. And before...
Sorry, that is incredible writing.
Yeah. Is that how you would flirt with a handyman, Dave? Is that what you would do?
Oh, man, I'd be fingering books left, right, and center. Oh, my God. I can't believe she wrote that.
He loves fingering the books. And before too long, I make the way from the books to his chest. He smiles. Hook, line, and sinker.
She loves her fishing metaphors.
And duck metaphors.
So what I should just say, point out to any listeners who maybe aren't as smart as like us,
Yeah.
or the writer,
Yeah. Or the
she's
writer.
using the fact that her husband is fishing for fish,
Yeah.
to illustrate that she is fishing for sexy handyman.
Oh,
It's very
drawing lines here.
It's very clever in a
Literary
story, isn't it? And
It's very clever.
if you were to be editing this, Zach, would you have gone down the route of going to, say, France? Would you have said, that you liked the books, like picking up books, and that you go to France
Well, I would
every
say,
year?
I think for me, if I was editing, I imagine she already has an editor, and she originally wrote it, and she said, and he got to work on the bookshelf, and the editor just wrote a note. Do you like books? Why do you have a bookshelf?
Yeah.
So she's had to fill that in. And then the next note was, where do you get your books from? Sorry, there's a lack of clarity here. Where do you get your books from?
The editor's a real stickler.
Yeah, and then
doesn't understand
she
regular
added the
stuff.
line, I go to France. It's like, is this every year?
Yeah.
Do you go to France every year? So then she had to clarify. So I think this story's been noted to death. That's why.
I start reeling him in. We kiss slowly but passionately. Take me, I tell him, as he pushes me against the bookshelf. He lifts up my negligee and pops down his trousers.
Right, I'm lucky enough to afford it.
Yeah. Where do you think she bought it, Dave? From France as well?
Oh, definitely. That's from France. That's from one of the annual trips that she goes on every year, except most years.
And pops down his trousers to reveal a rather large chode.
All right, let's go. Around the room.
Yeah.
Hands up. Who thought they knew where this was going and it was going to be a chode? That has absolutely blindsided me.
It really takes you by surprise.
There is no wife of a barrister that goes to France every year except for the last 2 years. Sorry, not the last 2 years, except for last year and the year before that.
Yes.
That uses the word chode. I don't know who wrote this confession because I don't know who uses the word chode.
Do you think maybe the editor? Do you think maybe the editor went, maybe you need to be more relatable? Because at the moment, the France trips and the sun hat, it's very unobtainable for people.
Yeah. The sun hat.
The sun hat is very. Oh my God! I've even forgot about the veranda. Of course.
Yeah, the veranda. My God.
I take it. So she takes the chode. I take it with both hands and ram it inside.
Inside what?
Inside her pussy, Dave. But,
but sounded like I rammed it inside the screen door and just kept smashing it. I don't know what.
Hands.
With both of her hands, because it's a massive chode, as we now know. But
there's nothing less sexy. I don't think there's a less sexy word than chode. And ramming inside, that's all bad. But chode is just taking me out of this.
Were you a little bit turned on before you heard?
My chode was chubbing up, but then she said chode, and I was out.
I'm out. I'm not coming back from this. Let's see if we can get you back, Zach.
Yeah.
I feel the pure density of it. It's absolutely enormous.
A dense chode.
It is. The girth is massive. It is dense. It is a dense chode. And the fact ramming makes it sound flaccid as well, doesn't it?
Yeah,
if you ram something.
I'm going to Google the exact definition of density. I just don't see how it would describe as a penis as dense. I just don't feel like it's a good descriptor. I'm looking up dense. Carry on and then I'll kind of come back to it.
So, something I'd never thought about Scott before. So she'd never thought that he had an enormous penis, Dave, before. I orgasm loudly, throw my sun hat on the ground.
Oh, she's wearing it the whole time.
The whole time. She's been wearing the sun hat the whole time.
And can I just ask, she orgasmed from vaginal sex against the wall?
Yes, from his chode.
Okay.
Ramming it
This
against.
is clearly written by a real woman about a true event.
I orgasm loudly, throw my sun hat on the ground as I come all over his dick.
over his dense dick. I just want to say, a dense dick is closely compacted in substance. Dense is an adjective that says closely compacted in substance.
Compacted.
I just
Like a
so
chode.
there's just a lot of dick in that chode. Is that what a dense chode
It's
is?
short, but hell is it dense? What's
Not
the
hard.
what if I look up the definition of chode? So I'm
I
sure
think that's
there's
a good idea. I'm just struggling to understand how a penis can be dense.
yeah. Chode is slang for penis wider than it is long. It can also okay. So do you think maybe it is dense? It's just really wide. Does that
Doesn't mean
fit?
it's dense. No, dense just means within that width. Compared to another penis with, say, a 6-inch circumference, 7-inch circumference, a comparable penis, there is more penis within that circumference.
Right.
That's what density means. Now, also, I want to talk about the fact that she described his penis as a chode, and then she said, I took 2 hands to grab it. Now, normally when you say 2 hands, you're talking about the length of the penis, because presumably in that descriptor, the penis is so long, it can take 2 hands, and then there's enough penis left inside to shove. But it's a chode. So is this penis so wide, so girthy that it's 2 hands worth of girth?
It's like a bowl.
Yeah. It's completely spherical.
It's just a bowl.
Picking up a bowl.
It's a
bowl that's made of diamond. It's that dense.
It's so dense.
It's a wonderful moment, and I'm left gasping for breath. It's wonderful, so wonderful. But as soon as I have finished, and so too has Scott, of course, I start thinking about Calvin. So I've forgotten about Calvin at this point. He's still out fishing. I know that this can never happen again. I asked Scott to leave, telling them that he was a ghastly decision to make. Scott leaves without saying a word, but first turns back and blows me a kiss. Quite the charmer. Do you think that happened?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one part I think that happened. Yeah.
I think that the editor had a sick day at this point.
Yes.
The editor had a sick day when she let Chode through. I tidy myself, have a shower, and make use of myself by cleaning up around the house. I need to take my mind off what I've just done. When Calvin comes home, he's not in the mood to chat and retires early. He does make the comment, however, that the bookcase has not yet been fixed. Was hoping he wouldn't notice that. It was probably worse since I was buggered senseless against it moments before. I decide not to tell Calvin, and just as we're about to leave, I check the mailbox to see that a note from Scott, addressed to myself, of course, is sitting there. He demands money, not to tell Calvin. I'm outraged. No. I'm outraged, but do nothing. Once back at home, I let out a big sigh and down a bottle of white wine. It's been a few days now.
Do you think she sculled it? She just got the bottle.
She sculled it, yeah. Just sitting in the bathtub. It was so dense. I'm outraged, but do nothing. Once back home, I let out a big sigh and down a bottle of white wine. It's been a few more days now, and I wonder if I should tell Calvin and come clean. Who knows when we might see dear Scott again, or, for heaven's sake, if there will be more threats. All right, so that comes from Diane. What do you guys think of Diane? Do you like her? Do you think she's a wonderful example of a wealthy woman in the country with a big sun hat?
She's definitely a great writer. We know that about her.
Yeah, she's a very strong writer.
Yeah. What do you think she should do, Zach?
I'm a really big fan of the fact that she's been blackmailed.
Yeah.
Her entire life and livelihood is in danger. It's happened, she said, a couple of days ago. So she's
She's
been
a trophy
blackmailed
wife,
by a
Zach.
man. Everything she's ever lived for is under threat right now.
Her veranda,
And
her sun hats collection.
her veranda, her sun hats, her yearly trips to Paris, except for last year and also the year before last year. But all of that's in threat. She's probably like in a deep mix of shame and guilt and fear. This isn't an old memory. This is fear, really, that it's all going to come crashing down because of this blackmail attempt. Yet she still takes the time to describe his dense chode.
Well, you've got once you see a chode, you have to describe it in great detail.
It's like, hey, I've been blackmailed. Now let me tell you about the chode.
It was dense. That's the only way I can describe it. What would you do, Dave Warneke, in this situation if you were beautiful Diane?
Well, speaking of the chode,
Yes, of course.
I don't want to encourage any bad behaviour here, but is there a possibility of her blackmailing Scott back by telling everyone that he has a dense chode, outing him as the owner of a dense chode?
Wow. So you go around that small town, that small seaside town, and tell everybody about his chode.
Yeah, if you out us as having done the deed, I'll tell everyone about your dense chode.
It's like a bowl.
Everyone, your penis is 4 times wider than it is long.
It's like a bin lid.
Does that exist? Are chodes possible?
I don't know.
That to that level, I don't.
To be a two-handed chode.
Two-handed chode.
Yeah, I don't think so. But if you've got a chode, write in. Send Sam a DM.
Yeah. Send me a photo of your chode, please. I welcome it.
Sam's often telling me he wants more photos of chodes sent to his DMs on Insta.
Zach's like, how's the podcast going? Great, but I wish people would send me more pictures of their penis. So,
there you go, Sam.
what do you do? Thank you so much. Finally, that's come up. I've been waiting so long. I've asked Peter Hitchener so many times to bring it up, but he just won't. Can you mention the chode?
Everybody, Sam wants you to send in pictures of his chode.
More at 6.
More at 6.
What do you think that Diane should do? Because she's being blackmailed. Dave, you're suggesting talk about the chode, tell everybody about the chode. Blackmail.
The old reverse blackmail.
Reverse blackmail. What do you do, Zach, in this situation? If you get
well,
sent
after
a letter
I've
like
written
this,
a lengthy description of my sex with the chode.
Oh yeah, do that first. Make sure that you write a beautiful
guidance.
story. Yeah.
What do? I would try and I'm never funny in these answers. I always just go, well, I think what I would do is I would try to have a conversation with the man, level with him.
Level with him. Yeah, go back down.
I would just try and sit
Take
down
the
and
Lexus
just go,
down.
Look, like, do you really want to do this? I mean, worst case scenario, I'll just tell him myself. You don't have that much power in this situation. I'd play something like that. I'd go, really, what's going to be the advantage? Do you really want to be the guy that blackmailed someone with a veranda? Because
oh my God, look at the size of the veranda. I can come after you. I mean, if you were ever blackmailed, either of you, do you think it's always best to just come out and say what you did first, so the blackmail has to end?
Do you remember when Letterman did that?
Yeah, he came out on television on his program.
He just took all the power away from the blackmailer. He was like, I just did this. That was very impressive.
Yeah, very smart thing to do.
Well, you could do that, but I've also been blackmailed myself many times, and my answer is always blackmail them back and tell them that I'm going to tell everyone that they have a chode, and it works every single time. Every time. A lot of
prawns have chodes.
Yeah, they do. Oh, they're so dense.
Well, guys, at the end of that, I have one more question. Who do you think, if this final confession from beautiful Diane was to become a film, who would you be casting in the role of Diane, in the role of Calvin, and in the role of the handyman with the massive chode?
Well, I would love it if someone as sexy as Chris Hemsworth had to play a character with a massive chode.
Great.
There's something to bring him down,
Yeah.
They've had it too good for too long.
It's funny that you say Chris Hemsworth because I was going to say Liam Hemsworth.
Okay. Well,
But
if we
I
can't
think
get Chris,
well,
we
he's
can go to
second- he's
Liam.
Yeah, that was more of a reflection of where I'm pitching this film.
There's
I nearly said
Chris
the
is-
third Hemsworth.
Yeah.
Oh, Luke. If you have to go to Luke, you'll go
Luke
to Luke.
Hemsworth. I nearly said Luke Hemsworth. Yeah.
Well, so you got Diane. Who do you think would be a perfect Diane? I think she'd be an older woman. I'm assuming she is an older woman.
How about
But someone that
Diane
says
Keaton?
Chode.
Diane
Diane
Keaton.
Very good.
Straight for Diane. And what about Calvin? So you got
Oh,
at the
a
moment
good-
you've got cast. You've got
Gary
Diane
Sweet.
Keaton, Gary Sweet.
Gary Sweet.
What do you think would make this film worthwhile? Like, do you think you'd have scenes of Gary Sweet? Because if you're using Gary Sweet, you want to use Gary Sweet. Would you want to have him maybe in court? Would you want to use him maybe fishing? How would you make use of Gary Sweet's performance?
That's a good question. I think I would do. Yeah, I'd maybe have a bit of the tension in their relationship. What's driving her to have sex with young Liam Hemsworth? You know,
With the chode.
with the chode, and I would maybe I'd set up some scenes where he's really frustrated about his thin, long penis, long, thin. An aerated penis.
Right.
It's like it's a long, thin arrow. My penis. It's just filled with
An
air
aero
bubbles.
bar.
You could put a hole in it at any time by accident. Just slip a finger through.
It's so fluffy and light. And she's so frustrated. All she wants is a penis with some goddamn density.
Well, I think at the end of that, guys, we've got two wonderful pieces of advice for two wonderful people that have written in, and of course, a fantastic film idea. Dave Warneke, at the end of this, what are tips for people you think to entertain themselves in isolation? What do you think people should be doing at these times? I know they can check out your goddamn 2 podcasts that you currently own and run. Do you own both of them?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I own them 100%.
100% own them. Yeah.
They're under my name.
Yeah.
For tax reasons. And, you can check out my podcast once you finish writing your chode fan fiction, and the pods do go on where we talk about stuff from history in hopefully a funny way, and then my other one, Book Cheat, where I tell people about famous books where I've read it, so you don't have to. So if you want to pretend you've read something next time, you're at a party, which we're never going to again. But anyway.
And Zachary Ruane, you've got 2 podcasts as well, my friend.
I do have 2 podcasts. I've got the Auntie Donna podcast, which is I don't know if you've heard of Auntie Donna. We're a sketch comedy troupe from Melbourne, Australia. We do some absurdist comedy. We always loved the rehearsal room. We're always making goofs and gags, improvising long form riffs. And we thought, you know what? We're always putting up this polished stuff online. Why don't we give people a taste of what it's like just to hang out with us boys?
Yeah.
That's what our podcast is. It's just a half-hour riff once a week.
Be in the room with the boys, huh?
That's basically
in
it.
the food court.
Also got
Being at the food court with
I had cancer 7 years ago. The other podcast is Recaps with Mish and Zach. That's a good friend of mine, Mish from university. We pretend it's 2009 all over again, and we are recapping season 1 of MasterChef Australia. We took about 3 months off that podcast, but we are coming roaring back in the next couple of weeks. But it's going to be a lot of fun. So much fun talking about Poe, Chris, Julie, all our favorites from season 1, like it's 2009 all over again. It's so much fun. Thank you so much for asking.
Thank you so much. You guys are a lot of fun. Mish Wittrup, of course, on that, who's extremely funny. And Zachary Ruane, I say to you, thank you for coming on this podcast. And I really appreciate you making the time to come on. Yet again, Zachary Ruane, thank you so much for joining me in isolation.
Thank you.
And Dave Warneke, thank you so much for joining me in isolation, my friend.
Thank you so much, and good night.
Good night. You did not kiss any prawns. Would you like to say that one more time?
Oh, I will put that on the record, but there's a couple staring at me over there that I'm going to get to right now.
Thank you, boys, and I will see you very soon. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.